Hi everyone, I'm Lina O from Al-Mustansiriya University in Baghdad, Iraq. I'm going to read for you from the page 506 to 530 from Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows. No, cried the goblin, bristling with the anger as he pointed a long finger at Ron. Wizarding arrogance again? That sword was Ragnarok the First, taken from him by the Godric Gryffindor. It's a lost treasure, a masterpiece of goblin work. It belongs with the goblins. The sword is the price of my hire. Take it or leave it. Griphook glared at them. Harry glanced at the other two, then said, "We need to discuss this, Griphook, if that's all right. Could you give us a few minutes?" The goblin nodded, looking sour. Downstairs in the empty sitting room, Harry walked to the fireplace, brow furrowed, trying to think what to do. Behind him, Ron said, "He's having a laugh. We can't let him have that sword." "Is it true?" Harry asked Hermione. "Was the sword stolen by Gryffindor?" "I don't know," she said hopelessly. Wizarding history offers skates over what the wizards have done to other magical races, but there is no account I know of that says Gryffindor stole the sword. "It will be one of those goblin stories," said Ron, "about how wizards are always trying to get one over one them. I suppose we should think ourselves lucky. He hasn't asked for one of our wines." "Goblins have got a good reason to dislike Wizard Ron," said Hermione. "They have been treated brutally in the past." "Goblins aren't exactly fluffy little bunnies, though, are they?" said Ron. "They've killed plenty of us. They fought 32. But arguing with the Griphook about whose race is most underhanded or violent is not going to make him likely to help us, is it?" There was a pause while they tried to think of a way around the problem. Harry looked out of the window at Dobby's grave. Luna was arranging sea lavender in a jam jar beside the headstone. "Okay," said Ron, and Harry turned back to face him. "How is this?" "Well, we told Gryffindor we need the sword until we got inside the vault, and then he can have it. There is a fake in there, is there? We switch them and give them the fake." "Ron, he'd know the difference better than we would," said Hermione. "He's the only one who realized there would have been a swap." "Yeah, but we could scrap her before he realizes." He quailed beneath the look Hermione was giving him. "That," she said quietly, "is despicable. Asking for his help, then double-cross him. And you wonder why Goblin did not like Wizard Ron?" Ron's ears had turned red. All right. It was the only thing I could think of. What's your solution then?" "We need to offer him something else, something just like valuable." "Brilliant! I will go and get one of other ancient goblin-made swords, and you can give up it." Silence between them again. Harry was sure the goblin would not accept nothing but the sour, even if they had something as valuable to offer him. Yet the sour was their only indispensable weapon against the Horcruxes. He closed her eyes for a moment or two and listened to the rush of sea. The idea that Gryffindor might have stolen the sword was unpleasant to him. He had always been proud to be a Gryffindor. Gryffindor had been the champion of Omegle Bonds, the wizards who had clashed with the pure blood-living Slytherin. "Maybe he's lying," Harry said, opening his eyes again. "Griphook, maybe Gryffindor did not take the sour. How do we know that the goblin version of history is right?" "Does it make a difference?" asked Hermione. "Change how I feel about it," said Harry. He took a deep breath. "We'll tell him he can have the sword after he's help us to get into the vault, but we will be careful about telling him exactly when he can have it." A grin spread slowly across Ron's face. Hermione, however, looked alarmed. "Harry, he can have it," Harry went on. "After we've used it on all of the Horcruxes, I will make sure he gets it then. I will keep my word. But that could be years, said Hermione. I know that, but he needn't. I want to be lying. Really. Harry met her eyes with a mixture of defiance and shame. He remembered the words that had been engraved over the gateway to the Norman Guard for the greater good. He pushed the idea away. What choice did they have? I don't know, said Hermione. Nor do I, Harry admitted. Well, I think it's genius, said Ron. Stand up again. Let's go and tell him. Back in the smallest bedroom, Harry made the offer. Careful phrases so as not to give him any defined time, the handover of the soul. Hermione frowned at the floor where he was speaking. He felt irritated at her, afraid that she might give the game away. However, Griphook had eyes for nobody but Harry. I have your word, Harry Potter, that you will give me the sword of the Gryffindor if I help you. Yes, said Harry. Then shake, said the goblin, holding out his hand. Harry took it and shook. He wondered whether those black eyes had saw any misgiving in his own. The Griphook relinquished him. He clapped his hands together and said, So we begin. It was like planning to break into the ministry all over again. They settled to work in the smallest bedroom, which was kept according to Griphook's preference, in a semi-darkness. I visited the least strangest vault only once, Griphook told them. On the occasion, I was told to place inside the false sword. It's one of the most ancient chambers. The oldest wizarding families store their treasure at the deepest level, where the vaults are largest and best protected. They remained shut in the cupboard-like room for hours of time. Slowly, the days stretched into weeks. There was a problem after a problem to overcome, not least of which was that their store of a polyjuice potion was greatly depleted. There is really only enough left for one of us, said Hermione, tilting the thick mid-like potion against the lamplight. That will be enough, said Harry, who was examining Griphook's hand-drawn map of the deepest passageway. The other inhabitants of Shell Cottage could hardly fail to note that something was going on, now that Harry, Ron, and Hermione only emerged for a melee time. Nobody asked questions, although Harry often felt Bill's eyes on the three of them at the table, thoughtful, concerned. The longer they spent together, the more Harry realized that he did not like much the goblin. Griphook was unexpectedly bloody-thirst, laughed at the idea of obeying lesser creature, and seemed to relish the possibility of they might have hurt other wizards to read the least strange vaults. Harry could tell that his distaste was shared by the other two, but they did not discuss it. They needed a Griphook. The goblin ate only grudgingly with the rest of them. Even after his leg had mended, he continued to request trays of food in his room, like the still frail Ollivander, until Bill, following an angry outburst from Fleur, went upstairs to tell him that the arrangement could not continue. Thereafter, Griphook joined them at the overcrowded table, although he refused to eat the same food, insisting instead on the lump of herb, meds, roots, and various fungi. Harry felt responsible. It was, after all, he who had insisted that the goblin remain at the Shell Cottage so that he could question him. His fault that the whole Weasley family had been driven onto the heading, that Bill, Fred, George, and Mr. Weasley could not longer work. I'm sorry, he told Fleur on a blustery April evening as he helped her preparing dinner. I never meant you to have to deal with all of this. She just set some knife to work, chopping up steak for Griphook and Bill, who had preferred his meat bloody ever since he had been attacked by Grey Back. While the knife slides away behind her, her somewhat irritable expression softened. You saved my sister's life. I don't forget. This was instructively speaking true, but Harry decided against reminding her that Gabrielle had never been in really danger. Anyway, Fleur went on pointing her wand at the pot of sauce on the stove, which began to bubble at once. Mr. Ollivander, leave to Muriel that evening. That will be things easier, said Goblin. She scowled a little at the mention of him. Can move downstairs at you, Ron, and Dan. Can take the that room. We don't mind sleeping in the living room, said Harry, who knew that Griphook would think poorly of having to sleep on the sofa. Keeping Griphook happy was essential to their plans. Don't worry about us. And when she tried to protest, he went on, we will be off of your hands soon, too. Ron, Hermione, and I. We won't need to be here much longer. But what do you mean? She said, frowning at him, her wand pointing at the casserole dish, now suspended in the air. Of course you must not leave. You are safe here. She looked rather like Mr. Weasley as she said it, and he was glad that the back door opened at that moment. Luna and Jane entered, their hair wrapped from the air outside and their arm full of dafty wood. And tiny little ears, Luna was saying, a bit like hip-hops, Daddy says, only purple and hairy. And if you want to call them, you have to hum. They prefer to waltz, nothing too fast. Looking uncomfortable, Dane shrugged at Harry as he passed, following Luna into the combined dining and sitting room where Ron and Harry were lying at the dinner table. Seizing the chance to escape Fleur's questions, Harry grabbed 2 jugs of pumpkin juice and followed them. And if you ever come to our house, I will be able to show you the home. Daddy wrote to me about it, but I haven't seen it because the Death Eaters took me from the Hogwarts Express, and I never got home for Christmas, Luna was saying as she and Dane relayed the fire. Luna, we told you, Hermione called over her. Their horn exploded. It came from air paint, not a crumble-horned snorkack. No, it was definitely a snorkack horn, said Brownie sternly. Daddy told me it will probably have a refund by now. They mend themselves, you know. Hermione shook her head and continued lying down Fox as Bill appeared, leading Mr. Ollivander down the stair, the winemaker still looking exceptionally frail. And he clung to Bill's arm as the latter supported him, carrying a large suitcase. I'm going to miss you, Mr. Ollivander, said Luna, approaching the old man. And are you, my dear, said Ollivander, patting her on the shoulder. You are an inexpressible comfort to me in that terrible place. So, au revoir, Mr. Ollivander, said Fleur, kissing him on both cheeks. And I wonder whether you could oblige me by delivering a package to Bill's Auntie Muriel. I never returned her to I will be an honor, said Ollivander with a little bow. The very least I can do in return for your generous hospitality. Fleur drew out worn velvet case, and she opened to show the winemaker. The tiara sat glaring at the twinkling in the light from the low-hanging lamp. Moonstone and diamonds, said Griphook, who had slid into the room without Harry noticing. Made by Griphook, I think? And paid for by wizards, said Burley White, and the goblin shot him a look that was both furtive and challenging. A storm wind ghost against the cottage windows as Bill and Ollivander sat over into the night, The rest of them squeezing around the table elbow to elbow, and with barely enough room to move. They start to eat. The fire clacked and piped in the great space beside them. Fleur and Harry noticed, were merely playing with her food. She glanced at the window every few moments. However, Bill returned before they had finished their first course, his long hair tangled by the wind. "Everything's fine," he told Fleur. "Ollivander settled in. Mum and Dad say hello. Jenny sent you all her love. Ferd and George are driving Muriel up the wall. They are still operating an all order business out of her back room." It cheered her up to have her tiara back, though she said she thought we'd stole it. "Ah, she's charmante, your aunt," said Fleur, waving her wand, and causing the dirty plant to rise and form a stack in midair. She coached them and marched out of the room. "Daddy's made a tiara," piped up Luna. "We're more of a crown, really." Ron caught Harry's eyes and groaned. Harry knew that he was remembering the lucreous Hades they had seen on their visit to Xenophilius. Yes, he's trying to recreate the lost diadem of Ravenclaw. He thinks he'd identified most of the main elements now. Adding the belly ring wings really made a difference. There was a bang on the front door. Everyone's head turned to wear it. Flo came rowing out of the kitchen, looking frightened. Bill jumped to his feet, his wand up pointing at the door. Harry, Ron, and Hermione did the same. Silently, a group hug slept beneath the table out of sight. "Who is it?" Bill called. "'Tis I, Remus John Lupin," called the voice over the howling wind. Harry experienced a thrill of fear. What had happened? "I am a werewolf, married to Nymphadora Tongs, and you, the secret keeper of a shell cottage, told me the dress and bade me come in emergency."